Good evening, everybody, and welcome to January's caucus during this very cold stretch of winter weather that we're having. It certainly feels like the farm show out there when we have an accumulation of snow, some frozen temperatures, but nevertheless, we'll have a nice warm event here this evening. So starting out, we're excited to welcome several guests here as well to our caucus, and excited at the beginning. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Funk, high school principal, to recognize our students and our teacher with an outstanding presentation. Mr. Funk?
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure tonight. We have Mrs. Lote and a group of students who worked together, did some amazing work, and put together a student wellness resource based on the curriculum and a reference for the students who need any sort of wellness support and ideas and coping strategies. So I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Lote. She can introduce the students and begin the presentation. We're excited to share this with the board and the community.
Can you hear me? All right. So I'm Aubrey Lowe. I did have it there for a second. There you go. I'm Aubrey Lowe, one of the health and phys ed teachers up here at the high school. And I wanted to thank you all for taking the time for inviting us here tonight to share a little bit about our resource. We did create a website that we can share with our student body here at Susquenita. So anybody with a Susquenita.org account does have access to this. External from that, they would just be given an error message and wouldn't be allowed to go into the website at that point. So anyone with a Susquenita.org can access this. Tonight, I do have a couple presenters here with me. I have Gabriella Buck, Cecilia Stoner, Delilah Kreider, and Maya Ingram, 4 of the students who are in my Health 1 course here at the high school. And so I want to just kind of give you a little background information about this website itself. Back in the spring, I was given the opportunity to work with a group of students on a challenge-based learning initiative. And so this is basically an approach to learning where students are involved in the learning process by kind of looking at what are some of the problems that we're dealing with and how do we solve those problems all together. And so throughout that like non-linear learning process, that's where they come to those real world solutions. That's where they come to to making the impact beyond the classroom. And so that's what we have here today with this website that we created. So back in the spring, we started that initiative. And one of the things that our student population looked at as something that we kind of like, maybe actually not just here at Susquenita, but in the adolescent age group altogether, is mental health. And so mental health is impactful to our students. It doesn't just impact their relationship. It doesn't just impact the way that they navigate their health in life, but it also impacts their ability to learn. And so we looked at last spring, what are some things that we can do to address mental health in our school specifically? And so that was the inception of our activity days. We had this group of students work together, create a presentation, and they did a beautiful job with it, putting together a rationale for these activity days that we implemented this year. And so every few weeks, our students on Fridays and different days throughout the semester get these days where they can like choose an activity to socialize one week, to engage in some type of fun thing another week, and maybe in another week, it's toward the end of the semester where they just need a day to catch up on their work, and that's the opportunity for them. But these days are designed to give them, number one, some of that time to reduce their stress, some of that time to like just step away from the learning process for a moment. It's that time where they can socialize with their friends, but it also, we've kind of gathered from some of the surveys we've been doing, it gives them a sense of agency here at the school. And so it makes them, through some of the data that we're gathering from this, the surveys that we're sending to the student population and things, we're learning that they're students who may not typically all of the time find their place are finding their place to fit in the different offerings that we have in these activity days. And so on that, I could go on for this for days. I'm sorry. I'll move on to what this is. And so I thought, in my health curriculum, I teach mental health standards. How can I take this and how can I have my students learn in that process similarly, but also like share what they're learning beyond our classroom as well? And that brings us to where we are with our Mind Matters Wellness Hub. And so throughout this entire process, throughout a 6 to 8 week span, I kind of recreated how I'm teaching mental health. Before, it was kind of your traditional, we have our discussions, we have our small projects, and we do our little things here and there to learn about mental health. And it really is like a reflective process on your behaviors and things like that. But with this, I changed it altogether, and I thought, how can I get my students to take an investment in this? How can I get my students to understand what this really means? And it had to start with them learning about the impact of mental health in its own. So it started with them learning about data and statistics. We researched the instances of mental health, the influences on mental health, and how it impacts students beyond just here at the high school or at any level. And so we use that data and things to create infographics. So the things that they were learning themselves about the need for mental health research and resources and things, they were then taking and putting into resources they created, which we have in our website as well. So they were creating infographics with data and statistics. They were creating slides that project on a weekly basis here at the high school with some different influences and coping strategies in a healthy way that students can kind of see for a short moment, absorb, and then move on. And maybe if some point they're struggling with what they saw on the announcements one day, they take that coping strategy and roll with it. So they were using Pages, they were using Keynote, they were using Canva, they were using some AI integration tools responsibly with this as well. They were creating podcast segments on our monthly podcast here at the high school. And so they were a part of all of this, not just having discussions in the classroom, but they were taking what they were learning in the classroom and sharing it with the entire student body on the podcast, on the announcements. And so they created this website, and this website is a culmination of all of those different things. So if we go to the next slide here, we can go to the next one. If we go to this slide here, I have a QR code that takes you to a link to our website. And this is our Mind Matters. We call it Mind Matters because, number one, it's matters of the mind. But number two, what's happening in our mind actually matters. And so we have this wellness hub of all of the different resources that these kids created into one. So if the kid who sees the announcements didn't really get what they wanted out of the announcements, or if the kid who listened to the podcast wants to hear a little bit more, they can go to this website and they can get that information. They can expand on what they've already learned. And so with that being said, I'm going to introduce the website and just some parts about it, and I'm going to let these girls talk a little bit about the learning process. So if you check it out here, we do have our main page. This is our welcome page. Scrolling down then, I have all of the Bitmojis of the kiddos in my class who did a great job compiling all of this information. And not only did they teach like their student population and things, but they taught me a little bit throughout this as well. And so if you scroll down is our welcome message, why we created this and everything. And then at the bottom, as you get toward it, we have all of the pages that link to some of our different artifacts. So the first thing I want to talk about are the infographics that they created in the data and evidence page here. And so they created these infographics with influences that impact adolescent mental health. And this is where they really did the research and evidence gathering for the things that we were going to share. And so I'll give the mic over here to the kiddos so they can talk a little bit.
Okay, so we did all the research to collect all the data and statistics. For example, one of them is 1 in 5 students get diagnosed with a mental health disorder, and this excludes the students or the children that don't look for help.
We worked on this project with partners or individually. It was a great experience for not only me, but the other kids in my class to learn more about the things other kids are going through or what other kids in my class are going through.
Working on this gave me a perspective of what other people deal with and gave me like an open eye view of how to deal with these issues in our school.
And the color schemes of all of these like help express a different like emotion in all of the posters.
And so if you scroll to the top, then we have the drop down arrow in our About Mental Health section. We'll go to our stressors and coping mechanisms. And so these slides are what played on the morning announcements on a week-to-week basis. I worked in conjunction with Mr. Shepler and his media team. I shared these with them in a Google Drive. They have access to it. I have access to it. So if I have students next semester who want to create more, I just add to it, and then he can continue sharing them on a week-to-week basis. But if you scroll through, these are some things that projected on the morning announcements. So some influences on those mental health issues that we see here at the high school, but then also some of those coping strategies that you see from it.
All of the different anxiety from blanks are all examples and factors of like anxiety children and people in our high school may experience throughout their time here.
As a class, we came together to find topics to talk about and give strategies to deal with these problems. For example, test taking, we decided that we can take notes prior to the test and like go over them before the test starts and look through them. We also, as a class, decided that it's really important to make sure you're prepared for things that are important in your school career.
In most of these little slides, there are coping mechanisms. So instead of like throwing a tantrum or something of those sorts, you can go on a walk or read a book or take deep breaths.
Yeah, and it's just the coping mechanisms listed are all healthy mechanisms. And also you can see we have listed symptoms. And if you one day are sitting in class and you look up and you see these, you can be like, oh, maybe I struggle with this. And you can look for those healthy coping mechanisms to help.
Yeah, so they did a great job just looking for those healthy coping mechanisms as they talked about, because we do know that there is a vast difference between unhealthy and healthy coping strategies. But then if you scroll to the bottom, we also included some like external technology apps that you can use to help you with these different types of things. And so beyond just like talking to a friend or creating a to-do list and whatnot, there are awesome resources out there. And these are just four amongst the millions that exist. TED Ed is a great resource that looks at some different like self-help, motivational, encouragement ways to improve your mental health. And we have some others in there that help others start those hard conversations about mental health. So it's difficult to just approach someone and say, hey, are you struggling? Instead, this Seize the Awkward website kind of gives you those strategies to have those hard conversations, but maybe in a less of a hard way, if that makes sense. And so if we look up at the top then and we go to our drop-down arrow one last time, one of the awesome things that they were part of is, and again, working in conjunction with the media team here at the high school, they have a podcast segment every month. And so the Health 1 course is actually only a semester-long course, but we're going to continue this into semester 2. And I'm actually going to keep the same kids from this to do that podcast segment because they have done an excellent job with the podcast. And so I'll let these guys talk a little bit about the podcast and how they did with it.
So the segment we do on the podcast is called Mental Minutes. We first did the first one in October, and we talk about for the first one in October, we talked about just mental health in general and like our perspective as a student.
The second one was in November, and we talked about our 5 food groups, which is definitely a great way for kids to learn about like the better abilities, like eating healthier foods and the body image.
Yeah, and it was a great opportunity for both me and Cecilia to take because we got to show like our opinion on what we had to say about it. And this is also helpful because it gives the student's perspective instead of like a teacher's perspective that you might not be able to relate to. So it's definitely helpful for other students.
And then one of the last things I want to talk about here is they didn't just like talk the talk in the classroom, and they weren't just in the four walls of our health classroom advocating for mental health. I observe the conversation. I observe these students in the hallways, and they genuinely are taking it seriously, and they're extending what they've learned beyond the classroom. And so one of the big things is like there's an obvious stigma that surrounds mental health, and it oftentimes, and I won't say oftentimes, but sometimes that's maybe what prevents individuals from seeking help. So in part, this Mind Matters Wellness Hub is kind of a way to help reduce that stigma so that students do have a place where they can get help, or maybe it's not going to be everything that they need, but it's a nice reminder and things like that. But the last thing I'll talk about there at the far end is our resources page. And we're vastly aware of the fact that this isn't going to be like for every single person. And there are so many things people go through and struggle with. And so this, in some instances, is beyond us. And so we actually did put in a lot of our resources that we did a lot of our research from, but we also implemented some of those resources that students could go to seek further help if they should need it. Does anybody have any questions?
I have one. This is phenomenal. Like, I don't know if I have enough of nice things to say. Where do you have your QR code posted? Like, how accessible is this? Because I would want it to be really, really, really accessible.
So right now we only have it on our morning announcements and our scrolling announcements, and we've had blurbs on our announcements in the morning. Mr. Shepler's done a great job getting the word out for us, but I would like to talk to Ms. Kisner potentially. We could get it on a website somewhere. We could get it on the social media pages. Definitely I can share that with anybody who would like to share that resource. We'd absolutely be willing to share it.
Even on some posters laminated somewhere around the building, even middle school perhaps, maybe elementary, not sure, but what an amazing thing. Great job. I mean, you literally could be saving someone's life by the work that you did. Amazing.
I want to talk about one more thing I think they actually did a great job with. I forgot to mention this. We're all aware of the impact of social media and our phone use, and as adults, we can probably sit here and say, I should have been on my phone a little bit less over break. I should have been on my phone a little bit less this afternoon. And so when we look at that, like take that reflective view, and like oftentimes we think, I should have, but what do we do with it? Every week for that 6 to 8 weeks, we had a screen time challenge in our classroom where we used the analytics from our Android and Apple phones to compare 1 week from the last to try and decrease our screen time. So we were actively like taking a reflective behavioral approach to changing that so that we were reducing the amount of time we were spending on social media, and we were spending more time with our family, which we know in instances improves our mental health and things. So when I say they didn't just walk the walk, talk the talk, they walked the walk. They practiced all of these different things. And so this was all them. They did an awesome job. Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you.
So once again, thank you so much. Girls, thank you so much for coming out, all of you, and presenting. And thank you for the integration. When I look at it, all of what you've done in this challenge-based learning experience, but the fun that you had, those learning experience, the integration, of mathematics, the integration of statistics, the integration of media, all of those aspects, and looking and researching, having some fun along the way, but challenging and taking on a very difficult topic. We're very proud of you, and you've nailed our portrait of a graduate. When we look at the strong the ability to be personally responsible and engage citizens and being able to be strong communicators, from the website to your planning to the podcast to now, and to sharing that out to a wider audience. Thank you so much, and congratulations. And we have a certificate that we would like to present to you to hang in your class to demonstrate all of your hard work for this challenge-based learning experience, the website, but most importantly for being a part of our Portrait of a Graduate. So thank you.
We send them both individually. Say, we need a picture, Dr. Fox.
Yep, up in there.
So moving along in our agenda right now, I'd like to go over some resignations, leaves, transfers, and employment. Just a public announcement. As we look at the agenda review, the meeting for January 14th has been moved to January 21st. That information will be posted on our website as well as posted throughout. So the meeting will be January 21st. Going over some resignations, leaves, and transfers for that meeting. Unfortunately, we do have a couple. We regret to inform that Mrs. Patty Hammaker is going to resign from the position of head custodian. She's done an unbelievable job, and we're very fortunate to have her. And she's going to put in to be one of our substitute custodians here within our district as well. And Patty has done a wonderful job, as well as Jessica Mutztabal has done an incredible job with us as well in the course of a paraprofessional. We wish these two professionals the best in their new careers that they're tackling. We have an employment opportunity for Colton Albright. He's going to join us as one of our Blackhawk team members. And we've taken that and moved that over to our maintenance area. So Colton's going to be working with our maintenance department under the leadership of Mr. Scott Howell and working with our maintenance team. We have successful completion of 90-day evaluations for Rachel Nguyen, our health room technician, and Marianne Oakley, our paraprofessional. They both have done an incredible job also here within Susquenita School District. Some agenda items up for review while we're continuing that momentum. We have our Cumberland Perry Area Career and Technical Center budget for the 25-26 school year. It is in the amount of $492,459. It is a $2,281 increase from the previous school year. There's a graphic that will be available there that will see the breakdown as well for being our membership contribution to CPACTC. We have second reading for Policy 218, which is student discipline, as well as I'd like to thank the Duncannon American Legion as they provided a $1,200 donation to be applied to delinquent lunch accounts at our elementary school. So we thank them for their contribution. And they've been great supporters of the school district, and we can't thank them enough. So that rounds out, at this point, in our agenda for January at this time. Those are the items. We're going to go over some review of finances quickly before I turn it over to Mr. Anthony Cagliotti from Klasick and Associates. If I did pretty well on that last name, right? Gagliardi. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Looking at our general fund, our board summary for this particular. Thank you. You'll see, just kind of take a moment if you would like to see at this point, as we look over our accounts for the month of December, we are coming about mid-year at our, for finances, midway through the school year. So overall, we are approximately about 39% encumbered or spent through the budget at this particular time. We continue to work through certain areas where information comes available. I know Mr. Browse and the team has done an incredible job today, working through, as they will every month, looking at certain variances, looking at certain purchase orders that come through to make sure everything's classified accordingly, and having that internal communication within our departments. All right, at this time, I'm going to turn the microphone over. This kind of audit overview is exactly what it is. Mr. Gagliardi from Klasick and Associates and his partners have done an incredible job of working with us. This is kind of that 100,000-foot level of our audit as we continue to put those finishing touches for February, at which time then we'll talk a little bit more about it at our caucus meeting, and then at that point, look at, for your consideration of approval for the final audit. And this is for the 23-24 school year at this time. Sir?
Well, thank you guys again for having me. For all of you who were here last year, like he said, Tony Glardy from Klasick and Associates. And this is our second year doing the district, so thank you once again for having us back. As Dr. Fox was kind of saying, well, first off, I have a lot to, I'm not going to be as good as those students. I could guarantee you that with my presentation. So we'll just have to hope for the best here. So like Dr. Fox said, you know, we're getting close to the finish line. There were a little bit of challenges that we encountered this year just with the staff changes and all. You know, we'd ideally like to get it out earlier, which, you know, we could kind of briefly go over that. So, you know, I want to thank Dr. Fox for letting me come in this month because, you know, as you guys could imagine, we're a public county firm. We have tax season coming up, so it's always nice to come in January where, like, you know, come February and, you know, by this time I'm still just starting my night at my office, in other words. So thank you for letting me come to this meeting tonight. So we're pretty close on a lot of our numbers. I'm going to give like a brief overview of where we're at with those. They might change a little bit, but I could kind of give a lot of main points with, you know, as far as those, and we could discuss that further. So I want to thank, again, Dr. Fox and the staff throughout for helping us gather information and answering questions when needed. You know, it's always a good staff here who helps us as, you know, as much as possible whenever we ask for something, when we need to go over something. You know, everyone has their own job, so that's not easy, of course, in the course of a day when those pesky auditors come and need you know, a lot of information from you guys. So I just want to thank the staff, you know, for that. So preliminary numbers would be, we are right around the area of it's probably going to end up being a small, as far as like profit or loss for general fund, a small decrease in fund balance. We're right around the area where it's going to be a small increase or decrease. There's a couple numbers that we're still finalizing that we're getting in. The reason it's going to be a little bit of a budget variance, which there will be a schedule in the audit in regards to that. The big things for that's driving revenue are your local revenue, which your tax collection was up higher. You guys had higher interest income this last year than the 22-23, and then your state funding, which this happened with all the school districts that I've audited this year. The state funding was much higher within all the different school districts. And Dr. Fox will probably attest, I believe the formula was higher for that during the year. So again, that's just not a Susquenita, you know, that's throughout, which no one would have known that at the time the budget was made, because as you guys know, the state budget, you know, usually goes till the summer, and, you know, you guys are waiting to see what happens with that. So that was really the bit, of course, you know, with the increased tax revenue, that was important because, of course, your overhead costs are just going up every year, as like specifically instruction, such as, you know, your salaries, of course, healthcare, you know, all those things are always going to be a driving force every year to go up. So that's, I think, where that extra tax revenue that you guys were able to collect, I saw, you know, a difference in that for you guys. So as far as the fund balance numbers, so last year I believe we were at about 13 million fund balance, probably about $3 million, $2.5 to $3 million of a spendable fund balance, because of course you guys have quite a bit committed, as most schools do, to things like, you know, pension costs, healthcare, you know, any projects that you guys want to do, you know, different investments that are tied up that you guys, you know, can't, you know, all that information. So this year there was, if everyone could remember, there was that new the 2024 note that you guys got for your debt. I believe it was in May last year, of about $15 million. So due to accounting standards, we have to show that as revenue for the year. So, and it has to hit fund balance, even though that's like not money that you guys are spending and you guys kind of have it tied up to what you guys brought it out for. That is going to make your fund balance seem like, about $27-28 million, but 15 of that right off the top is going to be due to that. And then again, just like last year, you guys have those same kind of commitments to your different costs. You're probably going to end up with slightly, around the same kind of unassigned fund balance as last year. I say, within the $3.5 million, $4 million range in that neighborhood. So, that's always something every school wants to watch because, it looks like, when if you're first looking at the numbers without understanding, you could look at that fund balance number and be like, oh, wow, what could we do? We could hire everyone we want. We could do this. But of course, when you dig down to what's that committed to, what you guys have to spend money on, that's why this stuff is very important, because it kind of helps you guys track that during the year. And as far as our big any findings that we have, of course, the staff change and it helped matters with the audit. We all know that there was the staff change during the year in the business office. I know you guys have a few staff changes the last few years, so I think it will be. I've enjoyed working with Jason a lot so far. He's trying to understand everything as much as possible. So I'm hoping that could continue. Where next year it's going to be the same person that we're working with, and there's going to be a lot more familiarity and all with that because it's important as much as possible for the business office to have anything ready for us, everything completed as much as possible because, when we come in, the thing with us is we never want to have to audit our own work. And that's not abnormal for some school districts. Everyone wants to get to that point, but no one has this budget to hire like 4 CPAs on staff, like a big school district in Philadelphia, for example. But, you want to have everything ready for the auditors. You want those financial statements to be pretty accurate when we come in. You don't want us to, us present us one thing and then we're going to change it a lot and, it doesn't look like the final product because then again, if we're changing all these accounts, we're kind of auditing our own work at that point, which it should be we're verifying the numbers that you guys give us. There's always going to be some minor adjustments throughout the year for that, but so I think something such as, and I know there's been something like a comptroller position or whatever, within the business office would help because, as the business manager goes, and I know this is even the case at my office, I'm the manager at my office and from day to day, I get pulled into this meeting, that meeting, I have to do that, I have to do a lot of different things like that. You just don't have the time all the time for the day-to-day, things that need to be done. I think if there was someone that could help you guys, that could oversee, the staff from day to day, oversee like the monthly, where at that point the business manager is more overseeing, answering the bigger picture question, all that. Like I think that's in the school districts I've been at, I've always seen that as a big help for them when they have a position similar to that, who has some experience, who could kind of, get everyone, get all the accounting staff, understanding that. And of course, it's important to have the staff who's going to stay around and learn from year to year. Because again, like I said before, no one wants staff who's going to change out and, and then you have to retrain someone. Again, same with us at our firm. We're a smaller public accounting firm. If we lose 3 people, it takes time to teach them, to get back to where we were, and so again, that's important for for any school, of course. So that's really, like I said, that's one of our big we're doing some bigger audit adjustments than we'd like to do. Again, we're here to help with adjustments, we're help with questions, but we just want those books during the year at a point where we could, where, like I said, we're more verifying the numbers when we come to the audit. We're just not, getting the numbers at that point for some of those accounts during the year. And the other thing I'd say is of course, grant management is important. You guys want to track all the time what expenses you guys, properly track them, properly put them in the correct category, what expenses are being spent on what during the year. There's different funding source codes for each federal program, so that's always very important. That's something I've seen sometimes too, where, if that's not in the right funding source code, it's hard to track then what exactly was spent under this, because of course those are compliance things. Title I, for example, ESSER, all that's compliance. What we do with those is we look at that at the end of the year all the time, and there's a compliance attributes we look at, like, did you guys spend it for the funds correctly? Did you guys did you guys get reimbursed for what you spent in a certain time period? That kind of thing. So I just think, make sure with the accounting stuff that's always tracked, regularly throughout the year, and that your grant management system is at a good point where it's easy for you guys to go and look and see what was spent under each and what was received under each program, because that's a big part, of course, of what, what's coming in during the year. And with the ESSER program, with the ESSER program going out, that's not going to be that's something you guys want to watch more, because that ESSER program had, large amounts that every school got during the last couple of years. And now with most of that being spent, you want to make sure any decision you make, you have the most accurate data possible, because, you're kind of going back to more of those normal levels, as far as the federal programs, your normal, like, nutrition cluster, Title I, those kind of programs. And one other thing I saw, and Dr. Fox and Jason, I know, have talked about this, is as far as, tracking your capital assets during the year, good program for that, is always helpful. So you guys can see exactly what assets you guys have in regards to each building, all that stuff, because that's always very important, because again, that kind of gets added, to your balance sheet, and that's going to help you guys, like, kind of maybe sometimes come to decisions. What do we have if we ever needed to get rid of it? How old is this stuff? When do we have to come into the new buying decisions for, if something's 30 years old, maybe then at that point, you guys know in the next couple of years, you guys will have to come to a decision where you're going to have to buy more, some stuff for that. So that's always just good to, you want an accurate capital asset and that's one thing I see a lot as well, is that stuff's easy to get lost in the foreground. You kind of update with assets year to year, but when it doesn't get updated, a lot of stuff's on there that's really not really on there anymore. So in a way, you're overstating assets, which what I recommend people is probably every 4 or 5 years or so, I'd go through and update that accordingly, and and make sure that's as accurate as possible. So I believe from discussion with Dr. Fox, that's going to be a summer project for you guys this year. So I think that would be beneficial as well. And a few other things I wanted to add in, like I said, for that new debt, we added that as revenue this year. So that's why your revenue, like I said, will look a lot higher as well. Not even fund balance, your revenue is going to look a lot higher. But if you're going to take away the $15 million for that, you're going to get at more at that level that I was talking about.
So when we look at that fund balance, I don't mean to cut you off, that fund balance for that 15 million, that's committed. So that's committed to capital projects and committed, it's only spendable with your vote to spend it on capital projects, which that bond note was attested to be spent towards, as well as our commitment. And we have our second payment coming up March or April for Cumberland Perry Area Career and Technical Centers building expansion project.
Right. And I believe 2020 was the one that was paid off during the year, if I'm not mistaken, right off the, yep. So of course with that one, but then you guys have, so that's always something important to track too. And you guys will see when you do get the actual financials, we do have like a schedule in there in your notes, which kind of shows your payment, your principal and interest payments each year, what you guys are going to owe each year, for the next however long they're open. So kind of helps, of course you guys have those schedules too, but kind of help, kind of has that information available to the public for that. And all that. So again, I just think, consistency is going to be key. We really enjoy working with everyone here. And I think, people, everyone I've dealt with here wants to do work hard. So I think as long, we hope that we get to a point where there's going to be no findings for people, and that we're talking about this before year end, because you guys are talking about budgetary things, for coming up when we're still talking about the 23-24 audit. Of course, an earlier audit only helps everyone, and it helps, you guys make decisions. You guys have to submit stuff to the state. You have to submit stuff to the federal government. You might have to give stuff to your bonding age. It just kind of helps all that, so you're not behind on any deadlines or anything. So I just think, all that will continue to help going forward. And what I always tell everyone, that I always think of the audits as a year-long partnership, as hopefully Dr. Fox and all could attest to by now. We only come in for the audit, but if there's ever any questions during the year, we're always willing to help. And, I know we've always already talked about, after the official audit's complete, I'm going to sit down with Dr. Fox and Jason and go over some audit procedures that we think will be beneficial for you guys, whether it's monthly things, whether it's, quarterly, yearly, things that we think are going to best, help that process going forward. Because, again, we want our clients to be as transparent as possible and that everything's in good order. It makes it only makes everyone's job easier. It makes everything easier for you guys. We don't have to be here as long, and it makes it easier, on our end as well. we could just come in and get out and, kind of go from there. Does anyone have any questions? I know I kind of talked for a bit. Does anyone have any questions on anything I talked about?
Just to clarify, so I know you don't have the final numbers yet, but in terms of where we are in a deficit for that school year, you're saying, I think I heard you say that we're pretty much at a break even, give or take?
Yes,
You're not sure, but,
correct.
and give or take, what are we talking? Hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands, like where are we?
It's probably going to be about 1 to 200,000.
Okay.
Or so, yeah. Mhm.
And that was, and I'm not sure what the number was, I was just trying to go back and look, but I'm thinking I'm remembering we were at a 1.5 million deficit, so what we thought was gonna be a $1.5 million deficit, we're looking at maybe a little bit of a deficit or not at all.
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
Right,
And yeah,
that's-
for those
that's
main
good news.
reasons, like I said, the state thing was a big reason why, those were two of the
Yeah,
two
right,
driving
right, and we
forces.
know that, I know Dr. Fox and we appreciate this, that we don't build a budget based on any increase coming from the state, we always do neutral, so I get that, right, I mean, I knew that was part of it, but it's good news nonetheless.
Yes, exactly,
So,
right,
it's
yep.
great news, actually, so thank you.
Yes, of course, yeah. Anyone else have any other questions for me while I'm here? And like I said, we'll be providing within the next, like he said, by your February meeting and all, you guys will have a final copy of the audit report for everyone's review, and and if there was a time that you guys think I need to go over everything more, but that should be kind of the main things, that we talked about. And also, of course, just let Dr. Fox know, and Dr. Fox could contact me, for that.
All right. Thank you so much for coming in and providing that overview. We certainly look forward to our continued partnership, year two of our partnership, and we appreciate that. And we can attest that we do and are thankful that when we do reach out to you, it's a quick answer or discussion that we have either in person, over the phone, or virtual to go over some of our questions. And we look forward to those end of the audit recommendations to continue to make us stronger. And I look forward to our partnership and yours to continue to move forward in that direction. Thank you. It's a great segue as we kind of transition at this point for budget overview number 2. Thanks again for coming, Tony. I appreciate it. So we'll cue this up a little bit. And again, this is kind of our second presentation as we look at 25 and 26. The details are going to be coming forth from Mr. Browse. He spent a tremendous amount of time. He'll be sending out that budget document here probably within tomorrow or Thursday. That document will be coming to you via email. That will be the spreadsheet that will have the comparisons in a similar format of where it was last year, but you'll be able to see the nexus or difference between last year to this year. But for right now, the presentation, looking at it, our budget focus continues to be to enhance and maintain our curriculum offerings for our students. We continue to maintain and enhance facilities when appropriate and work to provide a budget that is fiscally responsible to all parties. That continues. That has not changed. That continues to be our mainstay and our main focus throughout. As we continue with our budget considerations, these are some of what we would consider to be some of our challenges that continue to be the same. I sound like a broken record, but these are very solid, some of the difficulties that we experience. And number one is cyber charter payments. I won't go into that full array, but that formula continues to be very difficult for us. Very difficult for us as a school district, very difficult for neighboring schools as well. But statistically, we are hit very hard when it comes to cyber charter payments. Special education, that is a responsibility, and it's a responsibility we take very seriously, and it's a responsibility that we do what's in the best interest of the student. We don't look at that as a price, we look at that as a program, and what does that student need, and it's needs-based and associated-based. The problem we do have is when the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act was first enacted by the federal government, it was designed to be fully funded and has not even come close to that as well. But it still continues to ink a little forward. I know the special ed formula has increased slightly, so anything is beneficial to help us with the rising costs to be able to meet the needs of our students and provide them with the appropriate supports that they need and that certainly that they are that they should have. Utilities continue to rise. We saw it last year, and we budgeted in our 24-25 budget, and we will for 25-26, an increase in electricity. We had a very good historical rate, and we locked into a one-year rate as we watch to see what the futures do in terms of electricity. We know salary benefits and PSERS continue to increase. The PSERS contribution, I believe, went back up to about 34.72% after a little bit of a low. So just a little bit on our budget timeline. You'll see we're right here in terms of January caucus, first review of the budget. It's actually our second, kind of a high-level presentation, and the interactive spreadsheet will be sent to you that gives you that functionality to really drive into our spending plan. Here where it says approved preliminary budget, that little orange box, we're going to push that to May. May is preliminary budget, not typically April. There's nothing that says we can't do it at April's board meeting, but we'll see where we certainly are at. But typically May is preliminary, and then it sits for 30 days. You have the ability to adjust down any of the millage rate that you would like, and then June is the finalization of the budget as per school code. As we get into some new budget items, we'd like to not embed those, but kind of showcase those a little bit as well. Core switch, and that core switch is about $76,000, and we put down $29,200, and that's after E-rate. If E-rate is eligible, we like to take advantage of that, of course. It's one of my favorite things to always ask Christine. Unfortunately, is it E-rate? And normally it is not. But in this case, it is E-rate eligible. E-rate is a reimbursement, at which time it's a pricing mechanism established by the federal government if that continues to be in play. Power School, one of our goals is to move Power School from being hosted by the intermediate unit and host it locally and through the web. That would require some training. That would require some professional learning. That would require, again, some of the initial costs to onboard that in transition. But we believe moving forward, there will be probably about a $5,000+ savings after year one. So those initial costs anytime you migrate something and the training associated with it. But we believe, plus it will give us some flexibility to be able to do some things within Power School and being able to grade store and being able to do some customization. Incident IQ. Incident IQ is going to be a combination between maintenance and our IT staff to be able to use that instead of a program we've had that's a little bit more archaic. And that'll be used for maintenance and help desk tickets, facilities request tickets, technology tickets. And it's a ticket system as well as also can help with asset management as well. Desktop replacement computers for the high school labs. The next is Director of Safety, Security, and School Police Officer. That would be a new position if you saw the need for that. Full salary and benefits, we're estimating around $90,000. That position we would like to include as an Act 93. Right now, your Director of Safety and Security is myself. And having this position would allow for some flexibility of not only that position to oversee all the requirements under Act 44, but also be a Act 120 municipal police officer here on campus. Elementary math program, and Ms. Snyder will take some time to talk about that a little bit here in our curriculum and instruction overviews. Our math programs, K-5, is basically at this point, it's no longer going to be supported. So moving forward with a new program as we're in the stages of what we would call the study and review of selecting. So this 76, is the we would say the ceiling as we look forward to a program that matches what we need in a program that allows us to grow into. A UTV replacement for the maintenance staff, that $15,000 will probably buy you a used UTV that has a lower amount of hours on it that can be used and replaced and still be able to, unfortunately, plow snow. Or fortunately plow snow, but unfortunately we have snow. Wireless improvements at the stadium, that is not for the new marquee or the new scoreboard. Wireless improvements will be used for our camera systems that are down there as well and being able to support that, as well as support other technology that's used for different games such as Huddle and just being able to have that wireless capabilities and strengthening those wireless capabilities at the stadium. And an elementary replacement digital piano. And kudos to our elementary school. They've done a great job of researching one that meets the needs, certainly, of that program. So overview of budgetary, before I go on to that next slide, is there any questions on any of those new items? And we can get more detail as we move on, but
Just one on the UTV. I think I mentioned this, but I don't know if it was for this particular item. But would this be something that we could use the $15 million for? And if so, would it behoove us to look at something newer rather than something used that might need to be repaired?
yes, I believe that that's a capital purchase, that 15 million, well, 14 plus, that the capital, the bond, the new issuance of money could be applied to a UTV. And in that case, yes, I think it would benefit the district to purchase new rather than used, because you extend the life of
Right.
that for many
Okay.
years. Absolutely. Some overview of budget expenses. Roughly right now, we're about $40,167,257. This operating budget is about 3.9% increase from last year. When we look at this consumer price index, inflation was about 4.1% last school year. Inflation is about 4.1%. We see inflationary costs in Act 1 going down, which is a good sign, but it's about 3.9% increase from last school year. Projected revenue. Now, we stayed about the same when it comes to our flat line for revenue where we get from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. But we did include in our revenue the same revenue from last year. That means we received an increase in our Ready to Learn block grant. What we were told is to go ahead and budget for that again, and we did. So when it was 300, we got an additional 300 for 600,000. That was placed in there. Special education was a slight increase in subsidy. We continued with that increase. So we didn't go back to 23, 24. We stayed at levels of 24, 25. Now, there's a chance that who knows what could happen in terms of Congress, and who knows in terms of what they decide in terms of a state spending plan. But at this point, we were told it's comfortable to leave it at those levels. This spending plan does include an Act 1 adjusted index of 5.5% for this model at this point, because we are recommending an Act 1 adjusted increase to 5.5%. That takes the revenue at $37,597,851 at this time, for a high-level projection deficit from budget, from spending, from expenses to revenue at 2.568406. And that's currently right now, at this point. So our next steps, this is a very, again, high-level budgetary presentation. The code, the file will be shared with you that will take a look at each of those account codes, and we'll take a look at all the spending plans by cost code. And we did and have began to advertise for our series of special board meetings, which our first one is scheduled for February 13th, 2025 at 6 o'clock. And we have an ending time at 9 o'clock. So those are open to the public, and that's our first particular budget meeting at that time. Any questions on that high-level presentation at this point? Yes?
The federal funding, do we know that number? And the reason I ask that is because of an administration change. Is there any chance that that would be not what we're anticipating? Or has that been what was just passed in October, for the October budget? Would that be for ours coming up?
So I think the Ready to Learn block grant, I believe, is state.
No, but I meant,
Sorry.
but we do get federal funding, right?
Yes.
Do we
Yes.
know that number? I know it's not nearly what we get from the state, but I meant,
So we get Title I, Title II, pass-through of Title I, Title II, and Title IV. Those numbers we've told are probably not going to change much and have not changed much in the last 10 years.
Not too much, but we will not get like final numbers usually until June.
okay. I'm just wondering, because, just because of the talk.
Is there a chance that those could
Well,
go?
just with their talk, what's happening with the Department of Education, particularly, potentially underneath this administration, I just didn't know whether that's something we have to be cognizant of.
Yeah, that's.
May
that's-
not do anything. I just didn't know if we already knew those numbers or
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, we'll typically get those about April or May. Yeah. But they're pretty level for the most part.
So I have a comment and a question, or maybe two questions. What we just heard in the audit is there's a possibility that we could, when all the numbers come out, that we could owe an additional, say, $100,000, or that we could come out $100,000 ahead. I'd like to see whenever that's finalized, that we discuss that as an agenda item on the board. Sometimes in the past, what has happened is, and this may have been the distant past, where money was just automatically taken out of reserves to pay the excess, or the excess was automatically just put into reserves. I'd like us to have a discussion on that, because if it does come out that we have if we come out $100,000 in the plus, we may choose, I'm thinking we may choose to purchase something now that is in the budget next year, if we can get it now ahead of time, and take it out of the budget instead of putting that extra money, if we're that fortunate, into reserves. So I'd like that to be a conversation. The other thing is, so I understand Mr. Browse is going to be sending us out the budget information this week. I think what would be very helpful to us as a board is to, and we may not be ready for that this week, but for you all to tell us administratively what you want us to take a look at and have prepared for February 13th. Because I think if this budgeting is going to work, all of us as board members have to spend time at home looking at the budget and coming up with questions. For us to all just decide we're going to look at the entire budget is overwhelming and difficult. So if we are told, look at these sections and develop questions and be prepared by February 13th, then I think I would charge every single board member here to take time at home to view that chunk and be ready for February 13th. And if we could chunk this into assignments like that that are very clear, this is what we want you to have ready, and then we can charge ourselves to do that so that it is maybe more productive and less overwhelming. So I guess what I'm asking, if there's any way, and maybe not this week, you're just pushing it out, but if there's any way you can decide, we want to tackle these codes or whatever, that would be very helpful. Does the board agree with that?
I like that idea. I think the only hiccup I could see would be, depending on what codes that we look at, what if we don't have any questions and we come in for a meeting and they're not areas of contention, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think if they're planning ahead to have this done, this done, this done, and we blow through it all in a half hour, then we can go blindly a little further.
Okay.
As
all right.
opposed to going blindly every meeting.
Yeah, I get it. No, I agree. I think that just having that ability to move on, if
Yeah.
if we blow through it fast, because we could get rid of a whole meeting, even, you know.
Yeah, no, I have that laid out on the spreadsheet. We have it color-coded by the different categories. So night one, we're gonna review instructions, then week two, it's gonna be like instructional plus, then we'll get into special ed, then we'll get into all the miscellaneous categories and things like that. So you're gonna get a Google file that has a kind of a summary sheet on the front, and then a place where you can list all your questions, and that way you're not repeating questions, putting it in, you know, you can all work from that same Google sheet. The file that I send you, I am gonna send it via Excel. We're gonna test it tomorrow to make sure that that still works, because I'm doing some stuff behind the scenes that I'm gonna continue to work as you guys are looking at the file, but I'm doing more stuff for futuristic for me. So I didn't wanna just have the Google file out there and then do all the work and then have to go redo it. So I'm gonna send an Excel file, and I'll send it, whatever, every week or whatever, before the meetings or whenever you guys want. So that's the kind of the tentative schedule for that.
And that sounds perfect. The only issue that I don't even know how we address is sometimes we'll go in and we'll put in a question, and there might be multiple people reading those questions, and then they want to answer the question. And the answer to the question might pose another question, which then might get an answer. And then we end up having a discussion on a Google Sheet, which technically is a violation of some child
I
law.
won't answer any questions.
Yeah. So, I don't know, if we can figure out a way that the question is asked and it's a very easy answer, that somehow you could indicate, yeah, this is the easy answer, and then the person who asked it, if the question was answered, they could maybe delete it from the spreadsheet. So we don't have a whole long list of spreadsheet of answers, questions. Some were answered partially, some weren't. I don't know. If you can come up with a way for us to do that so that we can remove redundancy and those types of things, it would be very helpful.
I think the only problem with removing the question once it's been answered is if somebody else goes in there later on, they never saw that question, then they retype that same question. I hear what you're saying.
Or maybe we highlight it or something so everyone knows this is a question that was asked and is sufficient, and the person who asked it felt it was sufficiently answered. That way it doesn't have to be addressed again. And then if you don't know, then if I read it, it was like, well, Leanne asked it and she thought it was a good answer, but not me, and then I can ask it. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's got to be a way. We'll work it out, but
Yeah, I think as we go, we'll be able to flow a little bit, but I 100% agree. We won't go in and just blindly start to answer questions. I like the idea of putting them in because it gives us an opportunity to review those and then prepare for those to make sure we address those during the course of our conversations.
yeah.
I was thinking there might not even be a reason to go in there and answer them, just to have them as a list of questions so we all know what we're all thinking, and if somebody's already asked it, I don't have to answer it, ask it again, but we always end up coming in here and talking them out anyway.
Yeah, the reality of it is I like that idea a lot. Not everyone has time to sit down and read 20 questions and 20 answers, or whatever. They barely have time to put down their own answers, questions. So if the questions aren't answered at all, and we come into the meeting needing them answered, and they're answered at the meeting, I think that's actually probably the best. I don't know what everyone else thinks.
I think
but-
asking the questions does for you guys what's helpful, because you already know what you'll have the answer to come in with. But if you put on something on line item 613 and I go to 613 and I see there's already that same question on 613, I would just put my initials next to yours. That way, 2 of us are asking the same question, or 5 of us, or whatever. I wouldn't repeat it.
I think one of the questions I asked last year, Dr. Fox just typed in, "You really are a moron." No, I'm just kidding. It was the previous business manager. What does everybody else think? Will this work? Any thoughts? Because we'll just do as smooth process as possible. Yeah.
So I think what I hear you describing is we're typing the questions by each line item, or is there a whole separate sheet of questions like we did it before?
Go ahead. Howard, do you have it to go?
Yeah, there's going to be a sheet of questions that will be, yes.
Okay.
And then I will review the questions, and then I was, under the assumption that we would bring answers to those questions during these review
Okay.
meetings.
Okay.
I think the way it.
Described it, it made me think of something different.
No, it's a good. I think the way they had it last year was, this is the line item that I have a question about. Right, Marcy? I think you listed the line item that you had a question about, or it may just be a question in general. I think that's what we did.
Yeah, and then you put your initials next to it, that you were the person asking that particular question, right? So I think if you do that, and so, like I said, if somebody else has the exact same question, they could just type their initials in the same thing, if they want to, or they could just go, okay, somebody's already asked it, I don't need to do it. So, but I think that'll work.
All right, we are going to transition a little bit into the Susquenita School District Area Tax Collectors Compensation Annual Review. At your place, there are several handouts here for you as well. I tried to label those as handout 1 through several. We'll try to reference those the best we can throughout the course of this presentation and conversation. So certainly, as we look at the purpose, every 4 years, tax collector compensation is established by the board for payment to our tax collectors, and that's through school code and also through our board policy. So our board policy is located as one of your handouts here. It's policy number 606, entitled Tax Collection, and it outlines the role along with an attached, and it's also here as well. It's AR 606 or 606R, which is a outdated admin regulation that had established compensation rates beginning July 1 of 2001 and ending in 2005, 2006 for our tax collectors. The rates after 2006 had been reviewed and were reduced, and after 2006 continued to be those rates ever since. They were again reviewed in 2021. At that time, there was a motion looking historically, and it was exercised to keep the compensation rates the same past 2006. Handout number 1 was a letter dated October 25th, 2024 from our tax collectors, justifying and explaining the reason and rationale for wanting an increase, as well as an addendum handout number 3, which is their job descriptions for tax collectors, and there's front and back to that document as well. And we received that via email from our local tax collectors. So the request that was on handout number 1 specifies an increase with the following: 50 cents when the bill is mailed, $5 when the bill is collected, and $3 per installment when the installment is collected. That is certainly an increase from our current compensation rate that you'll see, which is located for discussion purposes only on a handout, where approximately we have 6,641 roughly, I believe, tax bills that are sent out for our school district this year, 24-25. The rate, I believe, is $2 currently per bill, $2 for penalty, $1 for the first installment, 50 cents for the second installment, and 50 cents for the third installment. So looking at an analysis, there's certainly tax collectors, as we know. It varies by every school district. Some school districts do all kinds of different things in terms of compensation rates, and it varies by county, it varies by area, it varies by school district. Some school districts do not have tax collectors, and they utilize a bank drop box system. That's because at that point there just wasn't people running for those positions, is my understanding. So roughly we have about 6,641 tax bills that are filed within our district for real estate taxes. After looking at a full analysis of what the requests from tax collectors are, we do see that there is a need or a recommendation from administration for an increase, certainly in tax collector rates for the tax year 26-27. Because when we lock in a rate, we lock in that rate for 4 years after they go through an election process. So while I hear what the tax collectors are recommending from their handout and their really well done letter, in which we greatly respect all of the work that they do, our proposal is to change the payments from $1 to $2 for that collection period. I'm sorry, from $2 to $3, so it would be an increase of $1, which is approximately a 50% increase, or 16.67% increase per year for the 4 years that they're there. $3 and $3 for penalty, $2 for first installment, 50 for second, and 50 for third, and that would remain the same. This is up for discussion because certainly this would require board approval in January. You have the option of staying the same, you have the option of adjusting, or you have the option certainly of adjusting it however you certainly feel is best as a school board. And you have the, certainly if you want more information or need more information on this topic, we certainly can provide that as well. The only hiccup, if you will, is we need to do this by February, because I believe it's February 25th. Sorry. So we need to do this here in January, I think because of the timing of our February board meeting.
As this is caucus and it is purpose of our meeting is discussion. Feel free to, if you have anything you want to speak to the board, feel free to come up and give your name and township and speak to the board, ask questions. I mean, feel free to engage with us if you would like.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Yep.
I'll just wait and hear what you have to say and then cut in. Thank you.
So just to go back on the 606R, you said it was in the 2006, 2007, that then it reduced to what the current rate is, the 2, 2, 1, 50, and 50. Is that correct? Okay. And it's been that ever since?
That I can see, yes.
Okay.
Yep. From my knowledge, from what I was able to find.
To find.
Yes.
Okay.
This is just my maybe ignorance of the topic. So is the amount of money that are the rate of collection per bill, is that the only source of compensation for tax collectors? And
Oh.
I didn't know if anything comes from the county or as an elected official or not.
So that's all we receive from collecting the school bills. When we collect the county township bills, we receive compensation from the county for their portion. And our township just did away with the school taxes. So there won't be any compensation for the township, just for me, but for other tax collectors, they do get some compensation for the township, but it's not, what the township receives isn't that great. Now, the county commissioners did just increase our compensation $5, up to $5.50 per bill. That's what we're receiving from the county.
And how many bills go out, the same number?
About 1,500 from my township. So I think Dr. Fox said it was 6,641. I wasn't sure what the number was for all the tax collectors, because there is, not sure if it's 7 or 8 tax collectors, because there is a tax collector in Dauphin County that collects for the school too. But all the other ones are Perry.
Yeah, that 6,641 is including the Reed Township.
And are you responsible then from out of that money to pay the postage? Or does
No,
that
we
get
do not
reimbursed?
pay the postage.
Oh, okay. Because it says on here, well, on one of them, so you're saying that we do that? We pay for the postage, we print, and we provide the envelopes? Okay.
And the reason why we had requested that we be paid 50 cents for the bills when we mail them out is because we handle the bills, some of the bills, and especially the ones that do not get paid, we handle them at least 3 times, and we do not get paid anything for that. We have to mail them out initially. If they do not get paid, we send reminder bills out in November, and then when they do not get paid, we have to handle them again for the unpaid bills. And we don't get paid anything for that work.
So is it my understanding, Dr. Fox, that you need an indication from the board whether or not we should put this on the agenda for the January board meeting?
Yeah, or if you need other information or any other discussion points, but yes.
So I guess I'm asking the board do we have any board members that have any concerns with putting the administration's recommendation on the agenda for the January board meeting? So I'm hearing we don't. And Mrs. Vogel, I would like to also just say, I think all of us, maybe not all, read our board emails and the attachments, and we don't always respond. And I appreciate the information that you've sent us multiple times. Whenever either the board president or the superintendent responds, often we assume there was a response. But please know, we've seen your emails, read and heard your concerns, and they weren't in vain. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much. And would you mind repeating what you did propose? I didn't get it all. Dr. Cobb.
Yes, absolutely. Whenever you're ready. $3 per bill, $3 for penalty, $2 for the first installment, 50 cents for the second installment, and 50 cents for the third installment for years 26 through year 29. Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
May I ask a question? Okay. Kelly Noss, Penn Township. So based on our history in terms of having to resend out bills and things like that, are we able to come up with what our difference in cost with doing these increases would be for the district? So like right now, we pay the tax collector X amount of money. If we do these increases based on our history of how many times we have to send out bills and the late notices, things like that, what the difference in cost would be.
Yeah, but they don't have that.
So, I'm sorry, I don't know, I just want to see if I can understand the clarification of your question. You're asking, based on the total amount of tax bills and what our current costs would be to pay tax collectors?
Correct.
Versus the possible new rate schedule, what the difference between those two would be? Is that accurate?
Correct.
Yeah. So currently, right now, estimated, it's about, again, I'm using the full rate, not necessarily the installments, or this is just an estimate. So it's about $13,282. With the new rate proposal, it would be $19,923. Roughly. Again, that's just going on total tax bills and going on the $3, the full, just that basic comparison. There's a lot of other, as Mrs. Vogel can tell you, details that are in there as well.
Does that answer your question?
Is there any increase when you go to a payment plan? Is there an increase in the tax amount? I don't ever do the payment plan, so I kind of ignore that. I don't know.
So when you do the installment, you pay the face amount. They just break it down into 3 payments.
Okay.
So we are doing this actually more work on the installments because we have to take it into another workbook. So you're doing more work, but you're cutting that money, dividing it by 3.
Makes sense.
You're doing 3 times the work for like the same money. I did just want to plead our cause. I know Greenwood increased what they are going to receive. They're going to receive $5 per bill, $5.50 per penalty bill, and then their installments would be $2.50 for the first and second, and then $3 for the third installment. And we are going to be losing 2 really good tax collectors because they are so discouraged at what we earn. So just want to put that in there, like, just food for thought.
Do you have data for the other Perry County schools with you, or just Greenwood?
I just have Greenwood, yeah.
Okay.
Is there, and maybe this is driven by state law or whatever, but I find it unusual that there isn't a payment cost for doing an installment. That usually happens in any time you break up a bill like that. Can that be added in? But that the taxpayer should be paying it, not us.
Right.
Because that's a benefit for them to be able to divide it up. And usually that comes with like a surcharge or whatever of $1 or something like that. That I could see then funneling
Yeah,
to them.
yeah, that would be a really good question to look at legally, to see what the school code and then what the
Yeah.
tax code specifies under that, to see if there's any way to label or see if there's an administrative cost that can be, almost like when we pay something over time, there's like a convenience fee,
Yeah,
if that's the right word to
right.
use.
Which
An
would be
administrative
exactly-
fee, certainly for being able to literally track that over time. It's a really good question.
Yeah, I
to
didn't know
see.
how that was set, but if that's something that could be done, you might be able to get rather than impose the school or impose you, it should be imposed on the taxpayer.
Yeah, that's
if they're doing
something
it
we'd
as a
have to really
convenience.
research.
Because they're not even getting hit with the penalty, and yet they're going past the penalty time.
See Marcy is Starburst. This is Jonathan. Who's your asset? Marcy Starburst, that's you.
Love it. Do that? Maybe.
Probably some really good lip readers online.
All right, good evening, everyone. Just wanted to take a few minutes of your time tonight to give you some ongoing updates from the Academic Operations Department. We have several ongoing projects that we've been working on, gosh, even since before this school year. So I wanted to just take a little bit of time to share some updates with you, knowing also that some of those updates are going to come to you in upcoming caucus meetings as we have I would say more full presentations to give to you from the different groups that are working on these items. But the first one I want to give an update on is the district comprehensive planning process. So a couple months ago, I mentioned that we would be kind of entering that in the fall and working with our committee, which is comprised of many different stakeholders, that we'd be working a few months on trying to get this plan put together to bring to you as the board. Hopefully, I'm thinking maybe February or March to actually be able to vote on. Our comprehensive plan is due to the state by March 30th. So there's a lot of steps that, happen before we even get to that point. So we have had several meetings so far starting in November. So the process is in full swing. We've completed needs assessment and data review, and currently we're going to be going into our 2 meetings that we have this month working on plan goals and action steps. So all of those things, take some time to kind of dig into the data and to really work with the committee on, but we'll be happy to share those with the board once we have that plan ready to go. And again, we have to post that full plan on our district website for 28 days. And then we will bring that to you, hopefully for an approval that we can get that submitted to the state in a timely manner. So really excited that we're moving forward with that planning process. And guys, please feel free if you have questions that come up, because I know I'm talking about several different things, so please interrupt me if you have any questions. Moving on, I do want to talk briefly about our K-5 math program review that we actually started, I would say probably about 9-10 months ago in early phases. So again, I do have a more full presentation to give to you, because we actually will be hopefully making a decision very, very soon, either by the end of this month or, the beginning of February. But I wanted to kind of give you a time frame as to what we've been doing the past 9 to 10 months, and really kind of honing our decision in with the staff at the elementary school and some of our staff at the middle school. So in spring of '24, we decided to move forward and pilot McGraw-Hill's Reveal Math program with some of our teachers in each grade level. And I want to kind of talk to you a little bit about where we were at that point in time. So currently we are using MyMath, which is a McGraw-Hill product, and we are in year 7 of that program. Okay, originally when the board approved that purchase 7 years ago, it was for a 6-year subscription. which means, you know, we pay for it up front. Every year we get the consumables that go along, you know, with that program that we have for our students each year. What we decided last year was that we simply just weren't ready to make a rash, quick decision on where we wanted to go next. I had found out some information from the publisher that my math was actually set to expire in a couple of years, so I don't really have a full idea. I just know that it's going to be coming to end of life, which they do with a lot of different programs. They cycle them in and out. But I knew at that same point in time we just weren't ready until we did really a full deep dive into some other options that are available.
Explain to us how a math, I'm going to say it's simple, how a math textbook is no longer alive or is no longer supported. Like what, you know.
Very different than than an actual standalone textbook.
I'm assuming these are electronic textbooks that we
do, Dr. Jones. Yeah, we actually have full-on in-print teacher materials that came 7 years ago, but then we also have those digital access materials that were a part of that subscription, both for teachers and students. So we had licenses for all of those items. But very different at the elementary level is just the intricacies and the amount of items that you get with that math program starting from the kindergarten level, and we do extend that into the 5th grade at the middle school. So it is more comprehensive than buying a single textbook. But again, we are making sure that that decision is standards aligned to what Pennsylvania is saying that we need to teach our students. So 7 years ago, that program, and it still is a great program. It's just what our publishing companies like to do is they like to phase things out for newer, you know, more up-to-date things. They usually run 2 programs at a time. And my math is just reaching end of life. So we knew we had to make some decisions, but we weren't quite ready to do that back last spring. So what our current publishing company decided to do was offer us a free pilot of Reveal Math, okay, through McGraw-Hill. And the reason I wanted to jump on that is because often pilots are not free. You usually have to put money into them. If you want to pilot a company's full resources and have all of those sent to you, digital online access, they give you, you know, the gamut of what they have for that program. So they were willing to offer us a free pilot for this school year. And I mean, I was able to tell them how many teachers per grade level. They really didn't, you know, fight us too much on that, and I know they value our business, so that was something we wanted to take advantage of. So we did some training, you know, last summer, worked with our teachers that decided they wanted to pilot Reveal, and definitely have had several meetings since then through the fall and winter discussing implementation of the new program, and really just kind of trying to do a deep dive, which is what I want to present to you at another meeting, of just really what we saw coming out of that experience. So it was very helpful that we were able to do that. But I also wanted to make sure you were able to see that we did request samples and went through meetings and trying to look at different programs that were available to us. And I know there are more out there, but really trying to hone in onto 6 programs it's been a big task. We've been working through trying to meet periodically with our grade level pilot teachers, just trying to, you know, just see what they're seeing in Reveal, but then also take a look at a deep dive and compare those other materials. So looking at another Houghton Mifflin program into math, Bridges from the Math Learning Center, Eureka Math, which has been around for a while, and we're actually looking at Eureka 2, which is a newer upgrade for that program. Tang Math, which is an up-and-coming program that's out there, and iReady Math. We currently use iReady as our diagnostic and our software with our 3rd and 4th grade students. And iReady actually has a faction that is simply curriculum, and they work on ELA, math, and science, so they offer those options as well. So we ordered in materials, you know, they send out free samples, we're able to kind of dive into those. And what we've been doing is really trying to build a rubric based on the needs of the elementary school, because we saw some things coming out. Obviously, we are constantly looking at data, but we're seeing and hearing things from our staff as well that we need to have in a new math program moving forward.
So the money that we just saw in the budget presentation that was for math, that's not K to 12?
No, that would be a K-5
K-5.
elementary program. My goal is to have something that covers,
But we haven't, from what I see, you haven't decided on what math program.
Right.
It's just we know we're gonna continue to work, we will decide on one, and we assume estimating it's
yeah,
probably
I've
gonna be.
gotten some different just
okay.
ideas and quotes and ballparks, but again, it is really tough because not, each company is a little different in what they offer. And we're hoping to go with something that, again, would give us that time frame of maybe a 5-6 year implementation, because really, it's really hard to know, just even within a couple years, if something's going to be moving us in the right direction. We need time with it. We need to actually spend time teaching and learning from the program. So that's what we're hoping for. Those were some averages that I was seeing on some of the quoting that came in. There were some quotes that came in I was not too happy with, and there's things you have to go back to the drawing board on, and really, as we move forward, we actually have an in-service coming up on January 20th. And our goal for that is to really take that rubric that has been created and have our grade level teams really kind of take it down to our top 2 choices and really spend time that day working together and looking through those materials and really seeing how it lines up with some of those things we identified as our needs at the elementary school. So that is our plan in a couple weeks, that we're actually going to have, then I hope, some more definitive information to bring to you as our thoughts as to why, the program we're bringing forth is the one that we're the most interested in. So yeah, that's kind of, the math program piece, it just has taken a long time to come together, but I'm glad we spent some time. The pilot alone made us realize we are not interested in that program. So again, we've gotten some great feedback from it, but we know 100% that there is no program out there that's going to be perfect for us, but we want the one that's going to match us the most closely and that we'll be able to utilize moving forward. So that's really where we're at in the math, process right now. But I'm hoping in a few weeks we will have some more information to bring to you, just to help us in that final choice. But we know what comes with that is just a lot of discussions, with the finances, what comes with each program, what do we need now at this point versus maybe we can scale up and add some things as we move forward into the future. Maybe we don't need everything right now, but we can build on that. So it's just some discussions that we're having, but we really need the feedback from the staff on January 20th. So that's kind of where we're at with the math program right now, but we will have more information coming to you shortly.
So once again, that number you see that we proposed is that, to me, that's that ceiling. Our job is to get that down, and as Ms. Snyder said, seeing if there's a program that we can scale up, because you're not going to use necessarily, you may, or we may, everything, but we want to be able to grow into a program, not grow out of a program. That program should align to our maps that we're working on. The input from the teachers is really critical and crucial. Mr. Ward and especially Mrs. Walsman also have been critical, integral into this aspect as well.
Yeah, it's been wonderful to have all of their feedback, so it's
Just
been very helpful.
one comment based on what you just said, like maybe we could narrow it down and only pay for this much and then add to it every year. Just as one board member, I prefer we buy what we need. And then we have that much money in the budget, because next year it'll be a different curricular area. I would prefer we spend what we need to and get everything we need for that curriculum area, because the next year we're going to need to buy for science, we're going to need to buy for English. In my mind, it would just be easier than a little bit of science this year, a little bit of math this year, a little bit of English this year. If we need it for math, let's get it, and then we're done, and then that amount of money goes into the next curriculum. That's, as one board member, that makes more sense to me than getting the least amount of math material and then adding to it next year. Because next year we're not going to have money for math. We're going to need it for another subject area.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, and I did give you guys each a copy of the updated curriculum planning process manual, and I will go into that in a couple of minutes, but we know next year with elementary is our ELA program, and it's really trying to look at what we have. We have put some things in place since that was originally adopted, so we might not need that full-scale ELA elementary program, it might look a little different, which we might need it to, because we're seeing a lot of success with the things that we've put in place the last few years. So again, it is a discussion point that's going to come up for that particular area. So again, I tried to make sure when I was designing this manual that we kind of were looking at those staggered subscriptions that we had, so it didn't hit all on the same year, because that does become very difficult to manage.
And is it all right to talk about that manual now,
Oh,
or should I wait?
Sure. Yeah, because I'm going into it in the next couple of slides, so.
Because, first of all, kudos. Like I told you before, I just think coming up with a curriculum design schedule is so hard, because it's been many, many years since there's been any legitimate, valuable curriculum work done at the district level. So for you to come in, and they all should be on cycle one, because no work has been done forever. So and my point is, I just could not praise you enough for all the work you've done. Having said that, I'm gonna be critical. No, I'm just kidding. Having said that,
Because I'm feeling the same way with this.
No, I see here math is, this year for math, we're supposed to do the writing and revising. That actually we're going to purchase and implement next year. So are we writing and revising, or are we in stage 3 for this? And if we're in stage 3, then we can change this from stage 3 and change some other numbers around.
Yeah, in stage 2,
and
you're
again,
really.
amazing work, but I can only imagine that you would even try to, no one expects you to stick to this. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it becomes very, very difficult because there is a fine line, and in stage 2, you are really, revising, rewriting, whatever you need to do, but then you're also looking at resources as well. So kind of putting us into a year 2 makes me think, okay, we're purchasing at the end of year 2 to go into the new school year with full implementation. And that's kind of where my head, I think, goes a little bit with that.
And that's where I'm seeing dollar signs too. So, just from a budget standpoint, and my mind goes back to when we got iPads and we were told we'd never have to purchase curriculum again because it would all be online, it would all free. But anyway, so every 2 has money by it. In other words, we should. Because the years that we're buying science usually is going to cost more money. So this year, if I understand this correctly, and again, if I understand this changes, so the money this year would go into business, would go into ELA 9 through 12, go into FACS, would go into math K through 12, science. There's no way we got the money in science.
No,
There's no way.
because they don't all need money this time.
No,
Right.
but eventually they will.
Maybe.
At some in the cycle, at some point we need to update our probes and update our books.
Right. So like for business, for example, a lot of the stuff that we've been working with Mr. DeLellis on as he's been reworking with his curriculum, we get a lot of free resources to work with his financial literacy, the things that he has. He already has resources that are working with his current courses. So right now with him, we don't see a need to purchase anything at this time. Same thing with, and I think I denoted that towards the end, with our ELA, with our 6 through 12. We still have another couple years on that subscription for that resource. So we're still, maybe a little over midway through using that product. So there's nothing monetary there that would come into play for ELA at the secondary for a while. Okay. So again, I think that's what makes these review cycles really hard, is because, yeah, you do see dollar signs when you see a 2 there, because it's like, oh my gosh, they're going to need new resources. But I also try to take a look at, these are my critical subjects that need the work, and I need them in on a year 2 because we're far behind on where we need to be with the mapping and the updating of the mapping. So that's kind of why what I presented to you, I think it was last spring, I gave you a copy and we discussed this, but I got to the end of the summer and I'm moving into the new school year, and I had to change some things because of where we got to at that point at the end of the summer.
Frankly, I respect that all of the Keystone areas and all the
Yeah.
PSSA areas are 2s, because we got to do something. So I respect and appreciate that.
Yeah, no,
Totally.
you're asking the right questions, because I feel like that is exactly what a 2 looks like. It's like, oh my gosh, we're going to have to, put a lot of money into all these subjects. But reality is, we still have some, great resources. Science even, we've been working, because the standards change and go into effect at the beginning of next school year. but there's so much free, great materials that they are offering to us that we have been training on that I think we're going to be able to put into use. So we're not ready really to say, hey, we need a new textbook series for science. We're just not there. But I feel like definitely with the math at the elementary level, that's why we've been spending the last year just really looking at those things.
And fundamentally, the curriculum maps, the unit maps, they come first. Ancillary resources and/or program, if needed, comes after those. That's kind of fundamentally what, it shouldn't be the opposite, where you pick a particular sequence or program or resource and then write your map to that.
Yeah, really philosophically, it should be your mapping. That is our philosophy. Our resource is just that, it's a resource. Our teachers should be following our curriculum maps that are standards aligned, and then we bring in those nice, robust resources that they can use to teach that, material. So, again, we will have more updates with math. I'm really, really excited to kind of, to get to that point to bring that to you. But I did just want to make sure and mention that and I brought this up last year as well when we talked about the cycle, that we did put into place. We have a curriculum committee and a professional learning task force that meets, I want to say, we've been meeting a little more than quarterly just because we've been meeting based on need, okay? So if there's something that comes up that we need to, reconvene the curriculum council on, we'll do that. But otherwise, we're trying to meet as much as possible. Same thing with professional learning. The task force just met today with elementary, last week met with, right when we came back off of break, met with the secondary, just really trying to get ready for our last full in-service day on January 20th. So we need to take advantage of that committee and the supports that they're providing. But taking a look at I wanted you to be aware of just some of the things that our curriculum committee has been committed to, and that really is same discussions we're having here. It's reviewing that cycle, seeing where we're at, current state of work, things that are going on, just all over the district. And then really our goal is to review instructional items that are brought forward to the committee. We have things that come up, whether it's from administration, whether it's from, the teachers, things that we need to look at. And then as I mentioned when I talked about the comprehensive planning at the district level a couple months ago, we also have to take that new educator induction program and have a subcommittee really of that overall district committee. They have to really take a look at that and provide their feedback, on that program, because that has to get submitted with that district plan by March 30th as well. We've worked on things that we're working right now on a resource guide for our teachers on instructing using video. Things that we're going to be sharing with them. We're almost ready to bring that out to the staff. And then really it's just things that we've been talking about at the district level and with our principals, is just lesson planning in general, and what does that look like across the district, and maybe how can we work that into what we're already using with Canvas. So that's something that we're going to take to that committee as well, and just some great ideas have come up already before we even have gotten it to that, to that point. So there's more to come with that committee. But again, professional learning task force, I see us even after this January in service, we're going to kick it into high gear and get ready for summer, as we move forward in the next couple of months. And they're going to be invaluable with providing some of that feedback for what we want to see, particularly if, hey, at the elementary and in fifth grade, if we're implementing a new math program, that comes with training and concerns that we have with that. So that's stuff we're going to have to work on for the summer. So again, these committees, we don't have a set time to meet, but we're trying, as we need them, we're pulling those together.
So thank you to all of our teachers who volunteer and take their time to be a part of not only the curriculum council, to review these really difficult topics and have really robust discussions and take them back to their department's grade levels, as well as teams. And also the professional learning task force to give updates. And that's really what it's about, right? It's to give those updates as to where are we? How are we doing in terms of certain things that we're rolling out? Do we need more time? Do we need less time? Do we need time to do A, B, and C? Are we way off base? To getting that input, because we can have the best plan imaginable, but really it should be driven with the teachers also. Really, it's for them, about them, and with them. And that's really where professional learning becomes personal, and that's where it really should be, and the continuum we want to move towards is making that more meaningful and more powerful. We don't have a lot of days, but it's maximizing those days without saturating those days, so you don't walk out like a zombie, because I've been in those professional learning where it's dump, get, forget. We want to make it meaningful, and it's a challenge, but that team has done an incredible job.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did put in the presentation just what you have access to in the copy that I gave you from the planning process manual. I just realized when I put that screenshot on there, you need the context of the actual manual because it goes in and explains each of those cycles. So that is something, again, that I will continue to revise, especially as we move through into the summer. So I just wanted to share also, just some planning where we're at right now, because that is reflective of that cycle that you just saw the picture of. So again, with math, we're going to continue work on the middle and high school math courses, K to 4 grade level maps. Really excited that we have Algebra 1 and Geometry complete that we're going to be bringing to you for review and approval very soon. So that was a huge undertaking, considering Algebra 1 spans 2 of our buildings as well. So we had teachers working together on that. Science, we're going to continue the work on the middle school and high school courses, the K to 4 grade level maps. You did approve the science. What we're doing now is just kind of overlaying some of those extra standards and things that we are already doing in some other courses. We want to bring that together, though, on those maps, just so the teachers know where those are taking place. ELA and English, we start our work, and I put tomorrow because it is tomorrow. We're going to start, and we're doing some different coursework the next 3 days, really to kind of just take a look at what we have so far. And I know the teachers are really excited, so even though maybe we could have waited a little bit longer because we do have access for another couple years to our subscription on our resource, the way the maps were done about 5 or 6 years ago is that they were based off of a resource, and they shouldn't be done that way. They should be based off the standards that the state puts out, and those are the maps, the way they should be done, and that's what should be taught in the classroom. The resource is just that plus that goes with it. So we're really trying to redo and have those look. And I think it's great that we have a district template that we're really all using to kind of bring all of that together. And then facts, I know you guys approved some stuff already at the high school, but really we finished some of that work, and I have Mrs. Harvath at the middle school working on finishing some mapping as well, so we will have that for you soon. And then business, I know Mr. DeLellis, he's continuing to work just because he's had some outdated things as well that he's kind of bringing. Plus, we also are putting into place that new financial literacy course this year. He wanted to make sure that was ready to go with the maps. So we do have a lot that's going on, but what's coming, and you can see that from the cycle, definitely, talking about our middle school and high school social studies and where do we go with those. I also bring up elementary just as a concern too, because really it's looking, because we know our time is so limited at the elementary, it's trying to look at cross-curricular and trying to make sure we bring all those things in that we're infusing those standards, maybe in different blocks of time so we can cover everything. And then middle school English will come, and then definitely, we've already started with some of the subjects, but assessments and, how can we, if we have, it's not in every course or subject, but, at our grade level, some common assessments and things that we can all use, and then reflect on that data that comes out of those assessments to see how we're doing. So it's a work in progress, but that's kind of the goal with those subjects. But like I said, for some of them, I think maybe even next month with geometry, we're continuing to work on some assessments a little bit earlier than projected. So some goals, just definitely continue meeting with the curriculum groups. It's a constant work in progress just because we're trying to pull small groups, manageable groups. The principals have been awesome with helping to support with this, but then some days we come in and we just can't make it happen because we don't have the substitutes or we don't have the ability to do it. So it's just trying to, we keep going back to the drawing board. If we have to cancel, we try to reschedule. And really, that's going to move into the summer of '25 as well. And it's following that cycle. Updating is needed, but particularly providing the professional learning, especially, with the new science standards and math at K to 5. It's some concerns for me because we want to make sure that, our teachers feel supported and prepared moving into next school year. And it's really just providing time for teachers, to work on the planning for their instruction. Creating, designing, implementing. I know this has been brought up many, many times. You just saw it in action with Ms. Lote's room, the student-centered learning opportunities and the things that we're trying to get our teachers to work on with our students. And I think in some of that assessment work, really going to be able to help pull them, you know, not just doing the traditional assessments, but we'll be able to really look at some of those project-based pieces as well. And continue bringing that completed curriculum maps to the board for review and approval. As much as we can, we will get them to you so you can view everything and, you know, keep that process moving. So really, for me, I just love suggestions and love, you know, thoughts about where you see us maybe focusing in the future. Is there something, you know, that's maybe missing in your eyes that we should focus on? And just maybe questions, concerns about the process and our progress so far. And I know those questions have come up, you know, at different points in time, but if you have anything for me, or maybe you need to hear a couple more presentations next month, and those thoughts will, you know, come out, but we will continue to work on those items.
I'm just going to kind of echo what Mike said, is that I think this is going into my 6th year on the board, and until you came here, we never got this stuff. So it is almost like drinking from a fire hose now, for me anyway, because there's so much there, but I appreciate it even more because there's so much there. So just to thank you and for what you're doing, and you know, I think it's hugely beneficial for us to all have some sort of stake in that we didn't really seem to have before. So thank you.
And I can't speak highly enough of the teachers that have volunteered their time and have been involved, because without their expertise, you know, one person can't know it all and do everything. So you really rely on those groups and those teams, you know, to keep the work moving forward. So that has been, you know, number one, super helpful to
I
the
was just going to
process.
say, our teachers they work really, really hard. And what I hear first and foremost from you is support. This is all about supporting our teachers administratively from the district office, hearing them, giving them the resources. Our teachers have been working without leadership in this area it's probably been 15 years prior to you coming here that really any meaningful support has happened curriculum-wise. And it's amazing. So thank you. Now, I do have a question, and I'm going to throw this out to the board. I'm sorry, I get passionate about curriculum. But I will ask this, like, I remember when the board got together and we were setting goals, we talked about some things. And I don't remember who, but I remember some board members were saying, why don't we teach handwriting anymore? Or why don't we teach signatures? Or why aren't we teaching keyboarding anymore? And I know there were some board members who were like, why is civics not a requirement for graduation? And other board members saying things like, why are we teaching these countries and not these countries or whatever? So when you ask what the board could help is, if there's a way that the board could intentionally be included in some of the curricular discussions as the teachers are getting ready to discuss them, like social studies. Hey guys, here's what our social studies curriculum is. We are beginning to take a look at it. Does the board have any questions? Or, you know, so I don't know if the rest of the board could speak to that. That would be very helpful, because some of us don't know, or we have questions, we have concerns. And for us to share those opinions after you and the team have worked on it for a year and saying, no, we don't want to teach Southeast Asia, or whatever, you know, I'm just saying, or whatever. Like, so that's one thing, since I think that would be very helpful curricular-wise as you're getting to that point where we're just starting on a curricular area, to see if the board has comments. We might not, we might, but I appreciate the opportunity to be asked. And whatever any other board member wants to say would be great.
And I will say, what's really great about curriculum writing is it's never done. So if we get to the point of having our math maps done and ready to go, our teachers still have to teach them for a year, provide feedback, and we are constantly going through that cycle of trying to make sure they're where they need to be. So feedback is always welcome at any time, not just even, you know, right when we start the process, because you can see something and I can bring it up for, you know, approval to the board, but maybe I'll have to bring it back again in a year after we teach through it and share with you why we want to make some changes, or, you know, what that looks like. So yeah, the feedback is definitely welcomed.
And, go ahead.
I was going to say, I was going to mention cursive writing when you were talking about anybody want to bring up any ideas, and I thought, ooh, she's talking math, though. She's talking math. That's not, this is not the time to bring this up, but I'm going to bring it up since you brought it up. Actually, I do think, I don't know how other people feel about it, but cursive writing, I had met some young fellows who were probably 16, 17 years old who were helping me with the project, and they found some letters, and they had no idea what they said, because they said, wonder what these say. I go, just read them. They said, we can't read cursive. And I thought, what do you mean you can't read cursive? It's like, we never got taught it. And I'm thinking, there's something wrong with this. I mean, I know that that's the case, but when I met it face to face, I thought, I don't know what the rest of the country is doing, but I just think it's something we might want to look
One
at
of the
again.
most controversial,
Yeah, I know,
you know,
I know.
curriculum topics,
Right.
because there isn't one
One
right
right
answer.
point, I know.
And we do some handwriting work, you know, within foundations and some of those things that we have. But, I mean, I've worked in a place where we had a handwriting curriculum, and that's the stuff that, you know, we worked on. It's just dependent on what people's needs are and what their thoughts are and how we want to move forward, because it's all out there, it's all available. We just need to take the time and, you know,
What I hear you saying
research
is that's
that.
a board decision.
It is, it's.
I think those topics, like you just mentioned, are worthy, like, those are large topics. And those topics are worthy of us recording and going back to that curriculum council and studying that. Because I think it needs to be studied, and us to come back with some examples and presentations to see, let you know, that kind of, take that time to research that a little bit further as to how that implementation, what does that look like? Study that, seeing what the feedback from the teachers are, and then bring that back, you know, to you for further consideration. Or you could say, no, this is the direction in which we're going, because ultimately curriculum
But
is
to
your
kind of
responsibility.
reiterate, without a board member, and I'm not suggesting this happen, I know it does in other districts, but without a board member sitting on the curriculum council, can there be an intentional way to solicit that information so that if a board member is thinking, I got these letters, these kids can't read it, I know there will be an opportunity at this time to bring that up, and I'm going to. That type, since we're not on the council.
Yeah, 100%. I think certainly monthly, we go over, just like we'll go over review of finances, we'll go over a review of curriculum. And I think those are really the times in open discussions during caucus to be able to say, hey, this is something I would like the curriculum council to study and bring back and share and provide some time to do a deeper presentation on. And that will give us a time frame to be able to do that. And it may take a few months to be able to research that heavily, or it may be something that takes even further than that. But it's certainly worthy of us to look at in a good holistic discussion of the board as a whole, the reason why we're at caucus. That way everybody can have some feedback into it to say, yeah, I think that's a great idea too, let's study that further, or no, not at this time. We've got some other things to be able to do to have that robust discussion on those topics. So I think that's the good natural integration. If there's something further, you know, that you want to let me know, to say, hey, this is something, can we talk about it during our review of curriculum? During those monthly meetings, just a heads up, let's make sure we touch on that or add that as a topic of conversation. Because I think definitely, as Ms. Snyder said, your input is extremely valuable.
When you have your curriculum, are you doing those monthly, Krista, or like give or take?
It's been about, it seems to be like bi-monthly. We were doing them quarterly for a little bit, but
Okay.
again, as needs come up, it's easy for us to like
Yeah.
convene the team and we, you know, work on it.
Because I was wondering if there's like, I don't know how formal they are, but do you set an agenda for those?
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah,
is there any
definitely.
way
So-
that you could share the agenda with us? That way we'd know what you were talking about, and then like Dr. Fox said, we could maybe discuss it at caucus so that like you said, everybody has sort of buy-in as to what's going on. Then we could kind of, you know, if you're not discussing handwriting at that point or English or whatever, but it's math focused or whatever, then we can kind of maybe
Absolutely.
hone it in on that. Just a thought.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
But I agree with Pat about the handwriting thing. I think we did have that discussion, and it seemed like a number of us were interested in having some element of that looked into.
Well, and I think around the handwriting, I'd be curious to hear what the teachers' perspectives are about having it or not having it. I think any person could have a perspective, whether it's a community perspective of that or whether it's my perspective from an OT standpoint and how handwriting might impact from that standpoint. But I'd also be very interested to hear what the teachers' perspectives are and how that collectively could also influence us as a board as to why that may or may not be a good choice to have that in the curriculum. I certainly would advocate for it as an OT, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the right decision as an educational system. But is there a compromise hearing both sides from an educational standpoint? Because I'm not an educator. I'm coming at it from the perspective of what my background is. But to hear the educator's side of it as to why their decision or what their reasoning is coming together then collectively to say, is there a compromise that maybe it's not a full-on program, but can it be weaved into the curriculum somehow or into the instructional day? So it's just what I think.
I love that we're having the conversation, because in my mind, what happened was a number of years ago, they were like, if it's not on the PSSA, we're not teaching it. End of discussion. And now we're having conversations about what we as a community, what you as an OT, what different ones of us feel our students should be learning. And I'm thrilled, because that's what happened to our curriculum. It was hijacked by some of these high-stakes tests. Not that that's all bad.
But, and maybe, from 5-10 years ago, the focus of handwriting was to learn how to handwrite and do it perfectly, where now our focus may be just to be able to read it, which is a very different objective of learning how to do it and how to recognize it and read it. Maybe you only need to know how to sign your name. You don't need to know how to form every A, B, C, D, capital and lowercase perfectly, but understanding it and knowing how to read it might be what the objective is, more so.
Because right now,
that's just different.
I'm sorry. Because right now it's literally a foreign language to these kids, and it's like, it was mind-boggling when I actually,
Isn't it?
yeah.
They can't read reading cards.
Very good. Anyway, I'm glad that you've brought this aboard. I mean, everything that you've presented tonight was excellent, really. You've done a great job.
As parents, we used to spell words out we didn't want our kids to know. Now we should just hand each other cursive written letters.
Speaking of writing, there's many reasons I'm going to miss Mrs. Balsbaugh in her retirement. One of the many is she's one of the few that can read my handwriting. So
I don't know what that is, but it's not printing or cursive.
yeah, it's
It is a combination.
yeah, she does a great job. Taking a look at our final item for this evening's caucus, and that's just a review of the 25-26. So we went to December's board reorganization. Now it's time to get out some of the meeting dates for the 2025-2026 school year. Same kind of considerations for format, if that so pleases you. August, September, October, you'll see. I do want to note a change for November of 2025, moving caucus meeting from Tuesday to Wednesday, and that's in honor of the election that is on Tuesday, so giving people a chance to certainly go out to the polls during that time. So that is one slight move. December is still reorganization on that Monday, so there will be no caucus meeting during that time. We do schedule for July meetings, but that is certainly at your discretion and can be canceled based upon any need and based upon any desires or information that we may need to meet about during that time. If everybody is in agreement with these dates, I'll give you a chance to look at those. We can add that to January 21st meeting for consideration. All right, so I look forward to seeing everybody here on January 21st. That is a move, that is a change. Thank you to all of our administrators for your continued support in being here. Thank you to our board members. I look forward to recognizing you here at the upcoming meeting, because January is Board Recognition Month. So without the team that's in front, you, all of your committed time and efforts, all of your research, and all of the countless hours that you spend, local governance at its finest right here would not be able to be in operation. We would not be able to have a fully functioning school in a district without all of your continuation and support. So thank you for what you do. You don't get enough thank yous. It is one of those jobs where it's a lot of hours, and certainly not enough thank yous during the course of it. So on behalf of myself, I respect and appreciate all of the working relationships that we have. I certainly am blessed to work with an outstanding board, so thank you.
Kent always gave us cash.
It's in the mail.
I actually have one question going back to the tax collector that I didn't get a chance to ask. So looking at the job description that was provided, has a time study ever been completed for all of these, like either in a 2-week period, 3-week period, that could be provided or shared?
So I never did a time study, but Rebecca Scholes from Penn, not Penn, Rye Township did, and she has a bachelor's, and she's I think accountant. But anyway, she is very efficient, and she said $8 an hour, and she's very efficient. As a matter of fact, she shared her her Excel program with me, and she's good.
So would she be able to share that time study of how much time it takes her to do? Would she be willing to do that?
I can ask her, but she is very bitter because of the lack of increase. And I think a big thing is, I don't know what happened back in the day, but it's like somebody put poison in the soup and we just can't get it out. I know I'm trying to encourage all the tax collectors that I talk to, that we're all for the same goal, and it would be nice if we can all just get along, because sometimes people butt heads, and I guess they don't really know why. But hopefully, so I can check with her, and she might.
That would be great.
She's not going to run again, so I asked her if she'd come tonight. She said she can't, so
Okay.
I understand. But I'll see what, I'll talk to her and see.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to all of our guests, and have a great